All right, what's up, guys? We are back again with another video about some theory crafting. Now, before I get started, I just want to let you guys know, let everybody know. So I am actually going to be recording. I got a few requests to record some gameplay of like my progression path and whatnot. Um, so I'm going to be doing that soon here. I actually just, this is so annoying. I actually just did it. At least I thought I did. So I hit my, hit the record button. You gotta hate this. Hit the record button, but apparently it double tapped it, so it like started recording and immediately ended the recording. So that's annoying. I did the whole run commenting. I was like speaking while I'm doing it, commentating everything. I'm thinking, man, this is a really good run. Had a solid run. Got Lydia right with Alpha Wolf. This was not a fresh wipe. This is just me going into a server that was already established. Alpha Wolf and Lydia right together, fighting each other. Got them both. Managed to get probably about an hour and 15 minutes for Quincy. Was pretty solid. Obviously, they're faster speed runs that are like in the 20 something minute mark now, which is ridiculous to kill Quincy anyway. But by the time I was done with Quincy, I had a copper weapon, merciless copper recipe, all the stuff I would need to make everything. I was ready to move to tier 2 whenever I was done with Quincy, and so I was just like ready to go by the time I was done. So it was a pretty solid pretty solid progression run that sadly was not recorded. So hopefully I'll be able to do that soon. I'm probably going to do it tomorrow. Start that. I'm going to break it up into pieces. Just so I don't have I just don't post like an hour and 15 to 30 minute chunk of video. I mean, some people might want to watch that, but I'm going to just break it up and have it be like 20 to 30 minute chunks per thing, just kind of showing exactly what's going on. That way, it's a little more digestible. But yeah, so today, whatever, yeah, we're going to be talking something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about some base location theory crafting. Now, that is one of my favorite things in this game. To figure out exactly what I think, kind of going through and talking about exactly what I think like some of the best locations are. We're going to use the interactive map here. We're going to get into this. We're going to nerd out a little bit here. So to start out, we're going to start in tier 1. I'm going to give you some base locations that I think are very good, if not the best, in tier 1 here. This, I've said it many times, I think this is the best location in tier 1, period. Like, even for, late game defense and whatnot, this place is just so ridiculous. That comes down to the fact that there's one entrance. You have a very large area here with one entrance. There's a lot of things you can do. This is good for solo players. This is good for duos. This is good for squads. You may not believe me, but I promise it is. It's good for squads. What you can do is you can actually put a bunch of castle hearts up here. Just make some of them very small castle hearts. Like put like a castle heart here, castle heart here, castle heart here. And then what happens is you can stack servants like in the center or over here, and like have some over here. And if you're on a squad with 4 people, you can even put a castle like on this side and have it so like as people are trying to raid your one entrance, you have the servants right here attacking them from across the road. It's just absolutely crazy what you can do here. So so this spot here, I would say number 1. This is good for everything. This is the best. This is the best spot in tier 1. Other spots. So I think for progression, this area over here is also really good for progression, just because it's close to Quincy. That beginning of the game. So anything just in this zone really can be good for progression if you want it to be. I would say the closer to Quincy, the better, because that way you can ride by and check to see if it's open and hop in there if it is. But obviously down here in this area too is actually pretty solid, just because it's close to copper mine. If you're playing with a squad, you might need a lot of copper, so this area is pretty good, and it's not too far away from Quincy. It's also in a very centralized location here, so like if you need to go over to Bear, you can go over to Bear. If you need to go over to Clive, you can head over to Clive, and you're only you're kind of in the halfway point. So yeah, this area is probably the best zone to build in, with this being the best location. This is pretty solid. There's a lot of space over on this side, especially for a squad or a duo. There's a lot of space over here. So imagine they have to fight all the way up this way. You know, you have the shards or whatever that matters is up here on top of this plateau. They have to fight all the way up this way, and then to get there, that's a pretty solid distance. Over here on this side of the map, this is one of the best spots in the game in terms of defense. It's because, yeah, okay, there's a couple ways up this plateau, but it's just such a long run. You can do so. I mean, there's so much fighting that could happen here. This base location is pretty good. Even though it looks a little strange, it's actually pretty good. You put the stuff that matters over here. You block all this off. Pretty solid. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about as well, obviously when it comes to squads, anything in this area you can make it very defensible. Whenever you have 4 castle hearts to work with, you can make anything very defensible. But if you're working on a lot of if you're playing on a lot of servers that have one single castle heart limit per clan, which is my personal favorite, that kind of mixes it up. So you have places like this that aren't maybe not as good because that one castle heart might not cover this whole area. Also, it's just a bad location in general because there's just so many ways in. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. So yeah, that's for tier 1. I would say another thing to consider is anything close to a cave passage. So cave passages are, in my opinion, I wouldn't say they're underrated, but I think people underestimate them a little bit. Obviously, everyone knows cave passages are really useful, but building near a cave passage is like next level crazy, in my opinion. So this one here, I mean, this is straight from tier 2. So imagine you build a castle here, right? Let's say this is your spot. You're, at the beginning, and this is pretty good. You're close to Copper, you're close to Quincy, you're close to Niklaus. You're not too far from Bear, not too far from this side, and you have this cave passage right here, which is from tier 2. So the idea is, once you've moved on to tier 2, you can farm all up in here, and then just come to the center, hop in here, and you're basically home. You're right here. You hop out, boom, you're there. This cave passage, super nice. This one is up from here in Cursed Forest, so that can be pretty useful. Kind of one that a lot of people forget about. So like this area here and this area here, they're not too far away from this. So this one's actually a pretty solid defensive area. This one's decent. It's good, especially with like a squad where you have multiple castle hearts. This is a really good spot. Your squad just takes over this whole side right here. This as well with squads. This isn't too far from this cave passage as well. Again, a squad can take this whole area. This isn't too far from that cave passage. So yeah, so consider stuff like that. This one's a little interesting. This is from over here in Silverlight. This is probably the one I use the least, personally, even though it's very useful. The only reason is because I don't really build on this side of the map all that much. It's just so far away from everything. Like, it's close to Bear. You can gank Bear at the beginning of the game, but other than that, I mean, it gets close to Winged Horror, and if you have a Eye of Twilight but you haven't gotten Bat Form yet, then I guess you could watch this and gank somebody the second they get Winged Horror, and take it back to your base. This location might be interesting. I haven't really considered this one that much. It seems like there's actually a pretty decently long run to get up to the top here, so it has so many different ramps going everywhere. But if you look at them, this one's really far away. This one's actually surprisingly far away. This one's surprisingly far because you have to go all the way around the back here. So this might be a nice little spot, especially with like a squad. Maybe you have or a duo, or if you have 2 castle hearts, that kind of thing. You take one guy over here, takes this spot here, and the other guy just takes all of this. So yeah, then that's right next to this, which is super nice for those farming runs in Silverlight. You teleport here, run down, do a huge run through this, run away, jump in the cave, and boom, you're home. So yeah, again, you'll notice a trend with my thinking is caves are a really big deal for progression, speed, because we don't get to teleport with resources. You can teleport in without any resources, do a nice farming run, and then take a cave passage, teleport back out. Saves so much time. It's also very safe because it saves time, and also you don't have to meet anyone while you're going through the cave. So yeah, recap for tier 1. This spot is the best, I would say. Anything in this zone is good for progression speed, for checking Quincy and being close while you're in tier 1 for checking, for going to Bear and getting anywhere you need to go. And then anything close to cave passages is really good. The small amount of entrances or a long run through the entrance to get to, a spot that is easily that's defensible. That's kind of what I value when it comes to base locations. So like hiding something back here, that's a pretty okay run from these locations. Up here is just so, even though it's a straight shot, it's kind of a long run. So yeah, you get the idea. Moving on to tier 2, there's a few less base locations in tier 2 compared to tier 1, but there's some really amazing spots here. I would say that overall best defensive spot for a single Castle Heart, this is probably the best because they have to fight their way up all the way through here. This spot over here, really good for 2 Castle Hearts. Just amazing, honestly, in terms of defense. It's a little somewhat out of the way from Dunley, but you can kind of just use the teleporters to get places and then ride back. So it's not too bad in terms of that. It's not too far away from this cave passage for Cursed Forest. Not too far away from the exit, from Dunley over here. Not too far away from tier 1. So even if you, like, at the beginning of the game, you kind of did what you wanted to do, and then you ran over here and grabbed, you got level 10 or something, or got your horse, got everything going, and instead of putting a base down here, you wanted to run up here and put one here. You can do that. You can get away with that. Not too far from tier 1. Other than that, I would say this spot's pretty good. It's just a really big, huge location. It's close to, these cotton farms over here. So you can kind of just get cotton whenever you want. There's cotton on this side too. 1, 2, 3. So it's right there. So this spot can be pretty nice. It's just that a lot of people will ride by them, so they might see you a lot, but This spot's pretty good. It's somewhat of a smaller location, but it is actually still pretty good. Even though it's a little bit out of the way, it's close to this, Beatrice and Taylor, and this zone over here has some cotton over here. This spot's pretty good. It has the one entrance right here, so it has 2 entrances here, but then it has the one ramp up this way, so that's pretty solid. Pretty good defensively in this location. There's no exits for caves except for this one in tier 2. So this is why, I've mentioned this before. I'll say it again. This anything on this zone over here in this area is really good for progression speed. While you get to tier 3, you get to Cursed Forest, you do a full run here, hop in the cave, hop out here. This spot's really good. Defensively, this is great. I mean, decent long run here and here. Really close to the Bastion of Dunley. If you build a base, if you start right here with your base, or even here and just block this off, and you listen out, you can hear the bell ringer, so that's really useful. Again, anything that's within a close proximity or good to a cave, or something that's a high value POI, or extremely defensible. That's what we're looking at. So, so I'll give you some examples of what I think are as a not too good of a base. This spot here is huge, and while yes, you could hide your stuff like here, I guess. The problem with this is there's not really just one spot in here that's like, oh wow, that's an amazing location to hide your stuff. I mean, you would probably hide it back here, but I mean, it's just just run this way. You're kind of up through all the defense once you do this. But I mean, it's not extremely horrible, but I think it's not great. This one's okay. It's just the water in the back here makes it a little weird to build back here. I mean, we have this water here. I wish this wasn't here. This would probably be a pretty solid location, but this right here, you kind of have to block this whole thing off to make it work. Let's see, a bad location. This is kind of meh because where are you going to hide your stuff here? They can just break in here and walk to it. Up here, they literally just walk 10 feet and get there. There's nowhere around here that's oh yeah, that's a really good spot. It's far from an entrance. Back here is good. Up here is meh. This one's good. Oh, okay. What am I saying? This is a terrible spot, and this is a terrible spot because there are 500 ways to access your castle. And the issue with that is whenever you get a castle into siege mode, right, you break down one wall with a siege golem, you can then just enter any side of the castle. So in a situation like this, what's good about this kind of a location is, let's say you break this door down. I mean, they have to push through regardless. What are they going to break down this side too? So they kind of just have to commit to one location and push in. Whereas a spot like this, they can just pick a random side. 1, 2, 3. This huge gap right here. 4, 5. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaps. So they can like break in right here, and while you're trying to defend this, somebody else comes to the backside, breaks in the wall over here, and just walks into your base. So I find these terrible in terms of defensively. They're pretty bad. Location, they're pretty good. Okay, Cursed Forest. Not much to talk about here. These two are horrible for the same reasons of the other bases I just mentioned. But at least they're in Cursed Forest, so if that's what you want, you can go there. Huge. Oh, you know what? I'll talk about this other one in a second. Huge location. Out of the way, but huge, and it only has two entrances. So this is a pretty solid spot, and you can build all the way down to this. So you can claim all this with this spot. I would say this is a pretty good spot in terms of Cursed Forest location. Close to a cave, so you can take this, you know, obviously it doesn't really matter if you just teleport down to like here. But let's say you're playing with multiple castle hearts, and you have like one around this area. You have a base up here, base over here, or over here, wherever. You can just take this and, you know, do something up here, take some mats as you farm, bank it all up here, and when you're ready for a run, just take it in your cave, hop down there. So that might be interesting. And then obviously the best location in the spot here, even though it's the furthest away of like anything in the entire map so far, is this. It's very similar to this location. This place is probably better because it has more like verticality and defensible positions. But in terms of Cursed Forest, this place is the best spot to build because you only have 2 entrances, and you can stuff stuff all the way back here. It would take 2 castle hearts. I will say that you know, the 250 tiles on 1 castle is not enough to cover this whole zone. But with 2 castle hearts, you can take do up to here and then do the rest all from here. So this place is one of my favorite spots personally. I really enjoy it. So yeah, but it's just out of the way. And again, you have this cave here, which is kind of nice. And then finally we go to Silverlight. I mean, you got to mention this one the first time as the first location. This is just wild. You use 5 tiles to block this whole thing off. You just claim all of this. On a squad, this is amazing. On a solo, might not be worth it. Simply because somebody can bust in the door here, and then somebody can bat from behind and break in the back and start messing with you, take your stuff, you know, and maybe hide over here with it, kind of thing. Or just fight you from 2 directions at once. This spot's kind of crazy in terms of like how many entrances there are right here. 1, 2, 3, and then there's 1 spot right here. But I will say this is actually a pretty fun spot to build. Nice little base, nice little bridge here. There's a really cool spot right here. Right here, it looks across this little chasm. You see this tiny little spot here. You can actually frog form from this to there, which is super interesting. So like if somebody's breaking down doors, you're in siege mode. If this isn't claimed, so you can kind of jump across this with bombs or something and just set them down, and jump back across, shoot them, set them off, boom. But yeah, this spot's pretty interesting. It's just really tucked away. It's really far back. I've done a raid on a castle here that was just totally full of all that. It was a squad castle. That was like all of this was just that squad. And it was pretty brutal. I took this back passage to make it a little faster, but it was still pretty brutal. This location, I mean, this is so far away. You block this off here, put the stuff that matters here or down here. So what you could do if you wanted to make it really annoying is like, this might not have the kind of merit that, you know, it might not be totally worth it, but like put like 2 shards here and another shard here, or like half your loot here and half your loot here. So that they, you know, they're fighting, they move all the way up here, and then they have to come back down here and do another, you know, clearing run over here. So that might be interesting. This spot's kind of cool. It looks really cool up here. I'll say that. Oh, sorry, not here. This area up here. You can fly to up here, by the way. If I recall correctly, it's been a while. I'm pretty sure you can fly up here. But yeah, this spot here, I mean, it's close to the road. Usually you would just block this whole thing off and take all this. And then this over here, it's easy to block the road here. It's just 2 sections. You take this, and generally you would have 2 castle hearts. So, but this was okay. Best spot is probably here specifically for a squad. This is like the most broken area in the whole game. So yeah. Anyway, so there we have it for these base locations. Hopefully you have something to consider. We're talking about all this stuff. My suggestions in terms of how to pick the spot, unless there's just some spot you want that spot, that's what you want to claim. Hey, dude, do it. Some spots are better than others, but meh, whatever. If you want like what I would suggest though is kind of just decide what you want the base's purpose to be. Are you specifically playing because you want to have like that in-game base where people are going to try to raid you, you know, and they're going to try to take your stuff, and you want that to happen? You're going to fight them. You want to have the most defensible base you possibly can. Well, there, you know, look out for spots like this, you know, spots like this and whatnot that have those very low access points that make it really easy to defend and funnel people into one spot. If you want to do progression, okay, well, look at the ways that speed up. You look at the positions that speed up progression, like the spot here for tier 1, up here for tier 2. You know, those kinds of things, or even over here can be okay for progression because, you know, it's close to this little waygate here. It's Silverlight, and it's not too far away from this cave. So, like, you know, consider those types of things. And then if you want, like, you could also have stuff like out of the way bases like this. I didn't mention this. This one's really good for defense, but it's a little out of the way as well. So if you want to be like the guy who doesn't get picked on, you want to like a little sneaky base, you know, looking for places like this, up here, you know, those kinds of things where like they have to ride all the way through Cursed Forest, deal with all the patrols and stuff while, you know, they put the siege golems down to raid this. You know, that might be something to look at. You know, so basically just pick what the goal of your base is. And then look for the base location accordingly. You know, sometimes you kind of just don't get lucky. You have to just plop a base down wherever. But my suggestion would be to kind of decide what you want that base to do and then pick the location in order to do it. But there we have it. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm going to be getting some gameplay out soon, hopefully. But until then, thanks for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.